What's good, YouTube? Back again with another video. Today we are looking at the Hitscan Hyperlight. This is a great wireless option inspired by the Viper Mini. I want to take you back to early 2020 when we first had the Viper Mini. It was 60 grams, a small shape, a good round back hump, good skates, and $20 on sale. Ever since then, consumers have only endured endless disrespect from Razer in the form of the Viper Mini SE and the Viper Cobra. So even in 2025, Viper Mini fans haven't had many modern wireless options. Do you spend $280 on the SE? Do you get the Walmart Starlight 12? Or do you get the Hitscan Hyperlight for $89? This is where I think the Hitscan Hyperlight slots in. Do we finally have the modern Viper Mini wireless in 2025? I think so. I've been using the Hyperlight for about 2 weeks now. I'm pushing new master scores on voltaic benchmarks, pushing my old high scores, and having fun tracking on Apex. This is going to be my full review on the mouse, but first a disclaimer. This is a review unit sent to me from Hitscan. Chris from Hitscan reached out to me, told me my reviews were great, and shipped it out as soon as I agreed. I wasn't paid, I'm not required to say anything beneficial, and I was more so surprised that Chris and Hitscan reached out to me, considering I'm a smaller YouTuber and I'm not afraid of making a negative review. If you're still worried, see the extended disclaimer at the end after you watch the review. Here's everything we're going to go over, so use the chapters to find what you're interested in. The build quality is very solid. No creaking here as it smartly uses the PCB to reinforce the walls like most lightweight mice these days. The shape is inspired by the Viper Mini, but instead of lazily cloning it like Chinese companies tend to do, or Ponage or Razer even themselves, Hitscan actually improved the shape here, flattening the sidewalls like I said, allowing grip compatibility with more hand sizes. I'm reviewing this with a 21 by 11 centimeter hand, and I still heavily enjoy this shape. It's definitely a big improvement over the side flaring present in the Viper Mini. I call this hourglass flaring because it looks like an hourglass, but looking at the shape of a hand claw gripping a mouse, there's nothing that indicates that an hourglass shape would be beneficial. I think this only restricts people to claw gripping it exactly where the thinnest point is. A nitpick that I have is that I would have liked it completely flat on the sides, just so we can completely get rid of that flaring. I think a mouse that does this slightly better is the OP1 8K, but that mouse is a bit too thin for me overall. The rubbery coating is good here. Passes this little 2-finger test, but it's not too rubbery, which I actually like. I don't want the mouse to be sticky when I pick it up, especially because I have sweatier hands. That being said, this is a great coating and it's compatible even with my sweaty ass hands. In case you forgot, the OG Viper Mini had a chalky non-coating, so that's a great improvement here. The base is open and perforated to reduce the weight. The only concerns I have of this open design is dust entering the mouse and then messing with the scroll wheel functionality. Luckily, Hitscan made the smart choice of putting a TTC dustproof encoder in here. As you can see, there are two large areas for your top skate and bottom skate. My only feedback to Hitscan here would just be to make the base completely flat. I think that should be the standard going forward. We see a lot of mod kits with flat bases, and we've even seen it in a release in the Orbital Pathfinder. Hitscan is currently a smaller brand with their first release here, so they're geared towards enthusiasts. So why not appeal to the enthusiasts that want to use, all different styles of skate sizes and shapes. And finally on the base, if you notice, the sensor is a lot more forward. It is a 3395, and I'm not really upset that they didn't go with a 3950 here. The 3395 is perfectly fine outside of a few edge cases, but the forward sensor positioning is another development step Hitscan took rather than just cloning the mouse. With the same sense, this makes finger adjustments feel more drastic without majorly changing the feel of wrist and hand adjustments. While this adjustment took some time, I appreciated the change and I feel like it can raise your skill ceiling by making you more aware of your fingers while aiming. The weight with my dots here is just about 41 grams. So if you do decide to use the 4-corner skates they provide or the large skates that they provide, you will be adding a gram or two. I think their listing of 39 grams was a bit ambitious, but getting it to be at just about 40 grams is still impressive nonetheless. The last thing you might notice about the base is that the battery is stored in the rear. I actually didn't like this because it gave me a slight weight balancing issue. The weight is balanced if I do a little USB dongle test here. Eventually you'll get it balanced at just about the sensor. The reason why it bothered me is because I have a larger hand. I grip it more towards the front and I don't use any palm contact, just a bit of knuckle contact when I need to stabilize the mouse. This essentially gives a bunch of leverage to the battery of where I'm, pivoting the mouse. So this did feel a little bit weird to me. This is why I went with dots to reduce the drag on the back skates. And it also could have been a combination of the new forward sensor positioning that I wasn't used to. And I don't think this is actually an issue at all if you do use palm contact. Palm contact would essentially eliminate that leverage that my grip was giving to the battery. If you do pure fingertip, you might need to grip it more in the back, which will make the clicks a bit stiffer. Speaking of the clicks, these are nice lightweight Omron opticals. It's a pretty standard implementation at this point. I feel like every video that I make about Omron optical mice it feels like the Maya X, which is the case here. There is just a bit of side play, which I wouldn't have even noticed if I weren't making a review video on this, and I definitely don't think this compromises the long-term click feel. The side clicks are nice as well, but they are a bit stiff, and I find no discomfort in the pre or post travel. The scroll wheel, like I said, is the TTC Dustproof Gold encoder. I love the scroll wheel. I used it in my Death Adder V3 Pro when its scroll wheel died, and it's still great here. Like I said, the base is open, so it's really critical to have that dustproof scroll wheel encoder. Here's a quick sound test. The Hitscan Hyperlight comes with 2 sets of skates, which I like. As you can see, I've already tried the 4-corner ones, unfortunately, and they also come with the larger skates. I prefer dots, so I went with mine here. The good thing is that neither of them come applied out the box, so you get to choose which one you want and have the other one as a backup. On a similar approach by Endgame Gear, they actually come with one applied and then the other separate. So if you wanted the other option, you're going to have to take off your old skates, effectively only giving you 1 set of skates. No matter which one you go for here first, you effectively have 2 sets of skates because the other one was not applied to begin with. These are a really good set of PTFE skates. They're basically similar to Core Pads or Tiger Ice, definitely some of the fastest stock skates I've tried. The software is available on the website. Everything you need is here, and you can just copy my config if you want. Just make sure to turn off ripple control and angle snapping. I use 1K in most games and 4K in aim trainers, and my battery life is good, lasting about 1 to 2 weeks. That being said, 4K is only available if you buy the 8K dongle, which is about $25. In my opinion, it isn't worth it, and you can just stick with 1K. I don't like that the software is not a WebDriver here, and I think that's the standard at this point. So moving forward, Hitscan should look to getting that out there. Also, when I was pairing my 8K dongle, I was having some issues, which was probably my fault, but they do have some weird, like, machine translated English, which makes the software just look kind of incomplete. Do you need to pair again? I mean, yeah, it failed, right? As for the extras, it doesn't come with much. It's just a mouse in the box with the 1K dongle, the 2 sets of skates, and the provided cable. They did provide me the 8K dongle here as well, but I think it should come with a mouse usually. But I think a good counterpoint is what Hitscan is doing here, which is pricing the mouse competitively at $89 if you don't go with the dongle. If they were to include the dongle, the price might go up to $100 or maybe $110, which starts to get up there. And that being said, I still think the 8K dongle itself should be cheaper. $25 is just too high for a dongle that comes included in most budget mice nowadays. I think this is the second most expensive dongle we've also seen. The original hyperpolling dongle from Razer was $30, but even they've discontinued that, and they started to include the dongle in the mouse. On top of all of that, Hitscan isn't at retailers yet, so you have to factor in shipping costs into that as well. The value here is great in my opinion at $89, but it starts to fall apart when you consider adding a $25 dongle and shipping. Another criticism I have is that this cable isn't very good. It gets the job done obviously, but it is just way too stiff at the insertion point. This is a pulsar paracord that I really like using. As you can see, it's much more flexible at the end. They also have a stress relief at the end. You might wonder why that matters, but I think we've all been there before. You forget to charge your mouse during the middle of a game, so you have to play wired for a round or two or a game or two. In that situation, the provided cable is pretty bad. Not only that, but the mouse itself has a very narrow insertion point for the charging port, which becomes quite annoying if you want to use other cables, like I like to use this pulsar cable. You're gonna have to put a lot of force to get it in there. With all that out of the way, let's talk about performance, which is great. It's similar to the L7 Pro I reviewed on this channel, and it's a better shape in my opinion as it features a larger, rounder hump with a more natural fall off on the rear. The issue with X2 style shapes is that the back humps are too sudden, basically forcing you to fingertip grip with it and barely giving you enough support when you need it from the back hump. This doesn't do that, so it really helps with claw grip, palm contact, and larger hands like mine. It's much more comfortable to push this kind of back hump into your palm when you need it. Even with the larger back hump, the clicks are still very low, especially near the front. So the low click height, the dependable back hump, and the low 40-gram weight makes for an amazing aiming experience. You can use those low clicks for precision and then balance it out with the hump when you need to stabilize or transfer your tension. Specifically, the hump presence helped me hit a Voltaic master score on 1 wall 3 target small. My struggle with the L7 Pro was not having enough hump to rest and reset my tension when clicking targets. In small static scenarios, you really need to be relaxed and smooth in the micro adjustment in order to move on to the next target efficiently and then maximize your score. This is counterintuitive to the fast and shaky approach most beginners take, and the back hump here really helped me stabilize. Something I don't think that's talked about much is that on extremely lightweight mice in the 30 to 40 gram range, literally clicking the mouse can shift where it is. It might not look like it here, but when you're in game or in aim training, when your tension levels are flying all over the place, it is something that I found that can happen. This was more of a problem for me on the L7 Pro because of that lack of hump giving me that stabilization, whereas on the Hitscan Hyperlight, because my knuckles can rest on the larger, rounder back hump so easily, I had no problem stabilizing for my clicks. As for tracking, it's also great. I'm not good at controlling my shakiness in my fingers just yet, so I was also using the hump there to stabilize. This is PGT intermediate at 28 centimeters on the Hyperlight and Artisan Raiden. And that's basically it. The hump makes a very natural shape even if you have larger hands like myself, so I don't think you should shy away from it just because you use a larger mouse. This should come as no surprise because it does come from the Viper Mini, which we have all known to be a very comfortable shape despite the smaller size. And this is one of the best shapes I've tried despite being small. The hump tapers off more naturally than something like an X2 Crazy Light. It has flatter sides than the Viper Mini, and it gives me good width as opposed to something like the OP1. If you're waiting 5 years for the wireless Viper Mini, this is it right here. It just doesn't come from Razer and it's only $89. Compare that to Razer's $160 flagship price tag and their absurd $280 price tag for the Viper Mini SE, and it's a no-brainer. And I admit that the counter argument is that Chinese clones are usually $50 to $80, but I respect Hitscan here for actually developing the shape. You could just say it's a Viper Mini clone, but I think they actually meaningfully improve the shape here. They reduce the flaring and then they move the sensor forward. The main comparison here is the ATK F1. This was allegedly made using an early initial model of the Hyperlight. Chris commented on this on Reddit as well. However, due to tariffs, the value proposition of the F1 really isn't there anymore in my opinion. You're going to pay around the same amount, though you do get the high polling dongle with the mouse. But as an earlier iteration of this shape, there's worse side flaring and you're going to lose out on that forward sensor positioning. I think that's important because it gives a characteristic that really changes how this mouse performs. Like I said, this is a great mouse, especially for a first one from a new company, and I highly recommend it if you are looking for a Viper Mini wireless. I just don't think the 8K dongle is quite worth it at $25, however. As for what I'd like to see from Hitscan next, maybe a larger shape under 50 grams similar to the Maya X, but I'd like to make them make another meaningful shape in the market like we have here, not just a GPX clone or Viper V3 clone. I'd like to also see them and other companies try more ergo shapes. I think ergo shapes have a lot of potential and the market is just filled with 60 gram EC style shapes. Also, there's some weird obsession with making mini EC2 clones, which I don't really get and I don't think it's a popular shape. I think we can get something new shape designs that are ergo, not just an EC2 clone, and let's get something under 50 grams as well. But props to Hitscan for sending this out for review, and I hope they take my feedback constructively. For the extended disclaimer, Hitscan reached out to me like I said. I didn't have to go to them and kind of ask them and say, oh, I promise I'll make a good review, right? I really respect that from Hitscan because again, like I said, I'm a smaller reviewer and I make pretty critical reviews. Not only that, I get a lot of comments of being too negative on reviews, which I really don't agree with. Sure, maybe saying something like the font and the text on the bottom of Mchos Mice is ugly is a bit of a nitpick, but I'm just giving you honest feedback. On something like the Pulsar X Lite V4 video, which a lot of people dislike, I was just giving my honest review of the mouse. It's such a minimal upgrade over the Pulsar X Lite V3 that I don't think anyone should buy it, and I discourage people from buying Pulsar mice because they lacked focus in that product. They also didn't fix a bug, which was slam clicking in the Pulsar X Lite V3, but forced you to buy the Pulsar X Lite V4 where it was fixed. So Hitscan reaching out to me tells me that they're more interested in real actionable feedback, which I think I've provided here. I think the shape should be completely flat on the sides. I think the base should be completely flat to accommodate all skate styles. I think the software should be web-based at this point, and it did have some weird translation errors. I think the charging port is too narrow and not accommodating to third-party cables. And I think the stock cable they provided was pretty bad if you ever find yourself in a situation where you ran out of battery but you have to keep playing. The 8K dongle, like I said, is also overpriced at $25 in my opinion, so I'd like to see them be more aggressive in the pricing with that. So yeah, if you want to question my integrity on the review, even though I've given those actionable feedbacks, fine by me. If Hitscan never wants to send me out anything again because my review is too negative, again, fine by me. But yeah, thanks. See you in the next one.